The Adventures of Lomax is one of the best 2.5D games ever made, especially for the PlayStation 1. However, it will also break the bank. So, I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today I'm going to bring you 3 good, cheap 2.5D games for your original PlayStation.
Second Opinion Games.
The first game I want to talk about is Spider the video game. And yes, the video game is actually part of the game's name. So I'm just going to call it Spider from now on. Not to be confused with Spider-Man. No, you're just the little tiny spider being genetically altered in the lab. Hey, I wonder if this is actually the spider that turned Spider-Man. Nah, because he could pick up tons of weapons, like lasers and homing missiles. Yeah, spiders with homing missiles. As if they weren't creepy enough already, now you have to give them freaking explosive mines to drop behind them? Man, this is nuts. He could also walk on walls and hang upside down and do everything a spider does. Run around different conveyor belts in beautiful 2.5D action. Now the levels themselves aren't as simple as just getting to the end, even though many of them are that easy. No, you have to pick up microchips. The more microchips you have, the more levels open up to you, and lets you play a little bit more. Now, one of the things I don't like about this game is that it's not one-hit kills, it's two-hit kills. And the deaths come often and frequently. And to the part I don't like is the fact that when you die, you lose all of your upgrades. And this gets really frustrating really fast. So you know what? Get good and don't die. Most of the time, the enemies that you fight in this game are a bit generic, like bees and rats and other little things, even other spiders. So it's up to good level design to really keep you pushing through this game, like all those hidden microchips. And there's other collectibles that you can find as you play through. So it's really not that difficult to make it to the end of the level, but to find all of the little things that you need to do to get through the entire game is quite challenging in its own right. All in all, this is a great 2.5D experience that I could recommend to pretty much anyone, and you might have missed out on it, especially if you were arachnophobic. However, I think it's pretty much a work of art, especially for the price of a cheeseburger. The next game I want to talk about is the Smurfs. Now, straight off the bat, you might think that it looks a little bit ugly, especially for such a cartoony game, and that's probably because of its 2.5D art style. They did a really lousy job in this, trying to force polygons where they just shouldn't have gone. They could have kept it a simple 2D action platformer game, but instead they took this route. Now, I'm not saying the Smurfs is bad, it's actually pretty darn good. I'm just saying it could have looked a heck of a lot better. So when you start up the game, there are 2 different ways to play. There's piece of cake mode, which the whole game can be beaten by a total 5-year-old. You're just running through levels, oftentimes no way of even dying, and picking up rattles and baby bottles. What do you do with these? Well, you give them to a baby and try and keep them happy by just giving them stuff and letting them sleep and eating them and feeding them and stuff like that. Hey, if only babies were really this easy to take care of. Well, maybe on the Smurf Village, they actually are. Now, the main game is started when you select It's No Picnic, and then it's a typical action platform game with a few little changes here and there. Occasionally, your Smurfs can pick up a power-up, which will allow you to do a double jump, or run really fast, or maybe just an attack outright, or maybe even pick up a present that you could use to open up your way, or as a weapon itself. Occasionally, you'll even shrink down sound really small, but all of these power-ups are short-lived and usually confined to the level that you're in. So it does mix up the monotony of gameplay, but it really doesn't add a particular amount of depth to the game. Now, most of these levels will also be beaten the very first time you play them, so to make them even harder, they made the game a collectathon as well. There are different moons that you could pick up in every single level. There are 3 of them, and sometimes they're hidden really well. So luckily, you could always go back and play previous levels and try and figure them out. Heck, sometimes you could see them, and trying to figure out how to get to them is the problem in itself. Now, I do like the variety that this game has to offer, and I really enjoy the Smurfs, especially the cutscenes in between the different parts of the world, like your opening cutscene. However, all the voices have been changed dramatically, so that's a little jarring, especially if you're used to the animated series as much as I am. But the art style is still right on. So overall, Smurfs is a pretty smurfing good time. It can be beaten in just a few hours, and it can be found on eBay for about $20. Unless you're at one of those evil retailers that want to mark everything up, in which case then they're going to ask for $30 smurfing dollars, in which case you better punch them in the smurfing face and tell them to lower that price right now. Or at least walk out of the store and go on eBay and get it for yourself. That's actually probably the better way of going about it.
It's terrible! Gargamel has smurfed a whole lot of wild creatures. They have just kidnapped 9 Smurfs. And our baby! We will have to free them at all costs.
Well, this time it is Smurf, and I'm...
But if you want to play the best 2.5D game for the original PlayStation outside of Lomax and Kanoa, well, you better turn to Wild 9. Now, if you think the game looks similar to Earthworm Jim, well, it's made by the same people that created that game, and it really feels like it in the controls. Now, you don't have a machine gun to waste your enemies. Instead, you have this weird grappling system where you could grab people with your electric arm and feed them into carnivorous plants, or drop them on the spikes, or shove them into electrical sockets. You know what? This thing can be used to torture your enemies to death. Or just bang them around really hard until they explode and give you some free health. Now, one of the things I liked about this game the most is the fact that there is no learning curve. No, seriously, there's no learning curve. The first level is just as hard as the last level of this game. Now, normally I would say that that's actually something to look down upon, but this is so much fun to play through all of Wild 9 because you can plow through the game really quick, and it never feels too samey. All the environments are very different, and sometimes they even have other effects, like the whole world is rocking back and forth, and you have to use the different platforms to your advantage in this own concept. It is incredible from start to finish, and if you think the developers took an easy way out to make every level like this, no, there's speeder bike levels too, where you can pick up missiles and shoot down these opponents that are trying to get away from you. And I know the graphics aren't the best. This was the PlayStation 1, but still it looks pretty impressive. And it feels good too. The music was composed by Tommy Tallarico, and he did a pretty darn good job with this one as well. And if I turn to the back of the box, it says that there is one of the largest enemies ever in a video game. And while he isn't the biggest, he does certainly have his own personality, trying to stomp you down dead, and you have to use your electric grappling arm to pick him up and smash him all around. It's really satisfying. And also on the back of the box, it says, "Pick up girls, torture your enemy, and exterminate evil." And that's pretty much what every gamer is trying to do. And you think with this much quality and this much diversity shoved into the package, it must be a fortune. But no, it's about $6. So if you ever need your 2.5D fix, well, you could probably pick up any of these games. Smurfs might be expensive, but it does have some pretty good Smurfin' charm. Spider is dirt cheap and feels a little bit generic, but it's a great 2.5D game. However, Wild 9 is where it's really at. It's a 2.5D masterpiece, and it can be had for dirt cheap. So in the end, no matter which one you pick up, you're a winner in my book, but that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and I want to know what your favorite 2D games were for the PlayStation 1. And if 2.5D is certainly your thing, I recommend picking up Tomba for an epic action RPG experience. It's not as simple as one of the platformers I talked about today, but it will certainly have you playing for quite some time. So hopefully you guys give me plenty of feedback and let me know what you want me to cover in the future. And until later, I will see you again, guys.